I lived in my Brooklyn apartment for 8 years. It was a rent-controlled place in Williamsburg that I got right after college when nobody believed I could make it on my own. Today was supposed to be my last day here before moving to Seattle for a new job. My brother Derek said he would come at 2 in the afternoon to help me pack, but he showed up at 7 in the morning wearing a suit and carrying a leather briefcase instead of work clothes. Before we continue, let me know where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. What my brother said next completely changed how I see family loyalty. Stay with me. Let me take you back a bit so you understand why this apartment meant so much to me and why what happened next cut so deep. I am Emmanuel, the firstborn son in my family. Derek is 3 years younger than me, and from the moment he was born, everything in our household revolved around him. He came into this world premature, spent his first 2 weeks in the NICU, and my parents never stopped treating him like he was fragile. I do not blame them for being protective back then. But that protectiveness turned into something else as the years went on. When I was 16, I got my first job bagging groceries at a supermarket 3 miles from our house. I would ride my bike there after schoolwork until closing, then ride back home in the dark to do my homework. My parents never asked me to do this. They just never offered to help me with anything either. Meanwhile, Derek got an allowance for doing nothing. He got a car when he turned 16. He got his college tuition paid in full, while I took out loans that took me 12 years to pay off. I am not telling you this to complain. I am telling you this because it explains why this apartment was so important to me. I found this place on my own. I applied with my own credit. I signed the lease with my own signature. No one in my family helped me, and honestly, no one in my family even cared. This apartment was proof that I could build something without them. And what a place it was. 1 bedroom, 700 square feet, original hardwood floors, big windows facing east, so the morning light poured in like liquid gold. When I signed the lease back in 2016, the rent was $1,200 a month. A steal even back then. But here is the thing about rent-controlled apartments in New York. The rent stays low as long as you keep the lease. And if you transfer it correctly, the next tenant can keep that same rate. By the time I was preparing to move, similar apartments in my building were going for $3,500 a month, some even higher. My little 1-bedroom had become a golden ticket, and I had been sitting on it for 8 years without even thinking about its value. I told my landlord Gerald about my move to Seattle about a month before. Gerald was in his 70s, a kind man who had owned the building since the 1980s. He shook my hand and said he was sad to see me go. I told him I would need a few weeks to figure out what to do with the lease, and he said to take my time. That was the last peaceful conversation I had about this apartment. 3 weeks before moving day, I made the mistake of telling my family about my new job in Seattle during a Sunday dinner. My parents seemed happy for me, or at least they said the right words. Derek asked a few questions about the company, the salary, the city. Normal stuff. Or so I thought. Now let me bring you back to that morning. 7:15 a.m. The buzzer rang, and I stumbled to the intercom, still half asleep. Derek's voice came through clear and awake. I buzzed him in without thinking, assuming he was just eager to help. When I opened the door, something felt off immediately. Derek was not dressed for moving boxes. He wore a charcoal gray suit, the kind he wore to client meetings at his finance job. His shoes were polished, his hair was styled, and in his hand was not a coffee or a box of donuts, but a leather briefcase that looked brand new. I laughed nervously. "You look like you are going to a job interview, not helping your brother move," I said. He did not laugh back. He walked past me into the apartment and started looking around, not casually like someone visiting. He looked around like someone taking inventory. He ran his hand along the windowsill. He checked the view from the kitchen. He opened the closet door and peered inside. "Derek, what are you doing?" I asked. He turned to face me, And that is when I saw it. The look in his eyes. Cold. Calculating. Like he was about to close a deal. "I am not here to help you move, Emmanuel," he said. His voice was calm, almost rehearsed. "I am here to take your apartment." I laughed again because what else do you do when someone says something so absurd? "Come on, man," I said. "Stop messing around. We have got a lot of boxes to pack." But Derek was not laughing. He set his briefcase on my kitchen table, clicked it open, and pulled out a stack of papers. He held them up like a lawyer presenting evidence. "I already talked to Gerald," he said. "He agreed to transfer the lease to me. I just need you to sign a few things, and we are done." I felt the floor shift under me. Not physically, but something inside me tilted. I stared at the papers in his hand, then at his face, searching for any sign that this was a joke. There was none. "When did you talk to Gerald?" I asked. My voice came out quieter than I intended. Derek smiled. 3 weeks ago. Right after you told us about Seattle. I called him the next day, introduced myself as your brother, told him you wanted to keep the apartment in the family. He loved the idea. I shook my head slowly. "I never told you to do that. I never said I wanted you to have this place." Derek shrugged, and that shrug contained everything wrong with our entire relationship. He shrugged like my feelings were irrelevant. Like my 8 years in this apartment were nothing. Like I was just an obstacle between him and something he wanted. "Because you would have said no," he said. "And this apartment is wasted on someone who is leaving anyway." My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and dialed Gerald's number. Derek watched me with that same calm expression, like he already knew how this would go. Gerald answered on the third ring. "Emmanuel?" He said, his voice warm but cautious. "I was going to call you today." "Gerald, I need to ask you something," I said. "Did my brother contact you about taking over my lease?" There was a pause. A long one. Then Gerald sighed. "Yes, he did," Gerald admitted. "He called me a few weeks ago. Very polite young man. He said you two had discussed it, and you wanted to keep the apartment in the family. He even showed me text messages from you saying that." "Text messages? I never sent any text messages about this." Another pause. "Emmanuel." He showed me screenshots. "From your phone. You said, and I am quoting here, 'I want Derek to have the place. He is family.'" My blood ran cold. I had never sent those words to anyone. Not to Derek, not to Gerald, not to anyone. My brother had fabricated evidence. He had created fake screenshots or edited real conversations to say things I never said. He had lied to a 70-year-old man to steal my apartment. I hung up with Gerald and turned to Derek. He was leaning against my kitchen counter, now arms crossed, looking pleased with himself. "You faked those messages," I said. It was not a question. Derek did not even bother denying it. "I did what I had to do," he said. "This apartment is worth a fortune, and you were just going to give it up. Someone in the family should benefit from your luck." "My luck? I earned this place. I found it, I applied for it. I lived here for 8 years and paid every single rent check on time. That is not luck. That is work." Derek rolled his eyes. "Whatever you want to call it. The point is, Gerald is on board. Mom and Dad are on board. Everyone agrees this makes sense except you. Mom and Dad know about this." Derek smiled again. "Who do you think helped me plan it?" I called my mother immediately. She answered on the first ring, which told me she had been waiting. "Emmanuel," she said before I could speak. "Do not be difficult about this. Mom, Derek is trying to take my apartment. He lied to my landlord, he faked text messages from me, and now you are telling me you knew about it." She sighed the same sigh she used when I was a child, and she thought I was being unreasonable. "Derek needs a place in the city for his new job. You are moving to Seattle anyway. What is the problem?" Why do you always have to make things complicated? The problem is that it is my apartment, I said. Mine. I did not offer it to Derek. I did not agree to any of this. I heard my father's voice in the background. Then he came on the line. Stop being selfish, Emmanuel. You always think about yourself. For once in your life, think about your brother. I wanted to scream. I wanted to list every single time I had sacrificed for this family, every birthday I worked through to send money home, every holiday I spent alone, because I could not afford the train ticket while Derek flew business class on our parents' dime. But I knew it would not matter. In their eyes, Derek would always be the baby who needed protection, and I would always be the one expected to give. I hung up without saying goodbye. Derek was watching me when I turned around. He had heard enough of the conversation to know he had backup. Mom and Dad are on my side, he said. Gerald is on my side. What are you going to do? He stepped closer to me, and his voice dropped to something almost threatening. If you make this difficult, I will tell everyone you tried to scam your own brother. I will tell our aunts and uncles, our cousins, your friends. I will make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I said nothing. I could not. The betrayal was so complete, so coordinated, that I felt like I was drowning on dry land. Derek continued. And think about your new job. You are about to start fresh in Seattle. Do you really want drama following you there? Do you really want to begin your new life with a family scandal hanging over your head? He picked up his briefcase and headed for the door. I will give you until tomorrow to think about it, he said. Then I expect those papers signed. After he left, I sat down on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes, and I did something I had not done since I was a teenager. I cried. Not loud sobs, just quiet tears rolling down my face as the weight of everything pressed down on me. I must have sat there for an hour before I thought to check my phone. When I did, I found something that made everything worse. The family group chat. I had muted it months ago because I got tired of the constant messages about things that did not include me. But when I scrolled back, I found a conversation from 2 weeks earlier. Derek had posted pictures of my apartment. Pictures I did not know he had taken. The kitchen. The bedroom. The view from the living room window. He must have taken them the last time he visited, when I thought he was just stopping by to say hello. Under the pictures, my mother had written, "This apartment is perfect for Derek. Emmanuel does not appreciate it anyway." And my father had replied, "He got lucky with this place. Time for Derek to have some luck too." They had planned this, all of them together. They had looked at my home, my sanctuary, the only thing I had ever built entirely on my own, and they had decided it should belong to someone else. To Derek. Always to Derek. I sat there reading those messages over and over, and something inside me hardened. Not into anger exactly, into something colder, into resolve. That night I almost gave up. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling thinking maybe it was not worth the fight. I was leaving anyway. Seattle was a fresh start. Did I really need to win this battle with my family? Maybe I should just sign the papers, let Derek have what he wanted, and move on with my life without the drama. But every time I considered it, something stopped me. It was not about the apartment anymore. It was about what giving in would mean. It would mean accepting that my family could take whatever they wanted from me. It would mean teaching Derek that lying and manipulation work. It would mean admitting that I did not deserve to stand up for myself. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Marcus, an old colleague from my previous job who had become a good friend over the years. He was calling to check in about the move, ask if I needed help with anything. I did not plan to tell him what was happening, but somehow it all spilled out. The story came pouring out of me like water from a broken pipe. Derek showing up in his suit, the fake text messages my parents taking his side. The threats, all of it. Marcus listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then he asked a question that changed everything. Did you sign anything? What documents, Emmanuel? Did you sign any paperwork agreeing to transfer the lease to Derek? No, I said. I did not sign anything. Then your brother has nothing. I sat up straight. What do you mean Marcus was a real estate lawyer? It was not his specialty, but he knew the basics of New York tenant law. He explained it to me slowly and clearly. In New York, a rent-stabilized lease cannot be transferred without the current tenant's written consent. Period. The landlord cannot just give it to someone else because they asked nicely. There is a legal process, and it requires the original tenant's signature. If Gerald tries to give Derek your lease without your consent, Marcus said he is breaking the law. He could face serious penalties, and Derek could be held liable for fraud because of those fake text messages. For the first time in 2 days, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. Marcus spent the next hour sending me links to the relevant laws and regulations. I read everything twice. He was right. Without my signature, Derek had no claim to anything. Gerald could not legally transfer my lease no matter how much he liked Derek or how convincing those fake screenshots looked. I gathered my evidence. I took screenshots of the family group chat showing Derek's pictures of my apartment and my parents' comments about me not deserving it. I saved the text messages where Derek had made his threats. I documented everything. Then I called Gerald and asked to meet him in person. Gerald's office was in the basement of the building, a small room cluttered with maintenance records and old photographs. He looked nervous when I walked in. He kept fidgeting with a pen on his desk. I did not raise my voice. I did not make threats. I simply laid out the facts. Gerald, I said, I never agreed to transfer my lease to Derek. Those text messages he showed you were fake. I never wrote those words. My brother created them to deceive you. Gerald's face went pale. I continued. I know you are a good man. I know you have been a fair landlord to me for 8 years. But if you go through with this transfer without my consent, you will be violating tenant protection laws. And I do not want that to happen to you. I slid a printed copy of the relevant regulations across his desk. He picked it up with trembling hands and read it slowly. I had no idea, he said, finally. Your brother was so convincing. He seemed like such a nice young man. He is convincing, I agreed. That is how he gets what he wants. But Gerald, this apartment is mine until I choose to leave. I am the legal tenant, and I am not choosing to give it to Derek. Gerald nodded slowly. He looked relieved, actually, like I had just saved him from making a terrible mistake. I will cancel everything he said. I will tell your brother the deal is off. I thanked Gerald and shook his hand. Then I went home and called Derek. Come to the apartment, I said. We need to talk. Derek arrived within the hour, practically strutting through my door. He probably thought I had given up. He probably expected to find the signed papers waiting for him on the kitchen table. Instead, I handed him my phone and showed him the email Gerald had just sent me. The email confirming that no lease transfer would take place. The email thanking me for bringing the legal issues to his attention. The email that ended Derek's entire scheme. I watched my brother's face as he read. I watched the confidence drain out of him like air from a punctured balloon. He tried calling Gerald right there in front of me, but Gerald did not answer. He sent a text and got no reply. This is not happening, Derek muttered. This was supposed to work. I took my phone back from his hand. It did not work because you tried to steal from me, I said. You lied to Gerald. You faked evidence. You turned Mom and Dad against me over an apartment you had no right to. Derek's face twisted with anger. You ruined everything, he shouted. This apartment was supposed to be mine. Do you know how much it is worth? Do you know what I could have done with a place like this? I nodded. I know exactly what it is worth. That is why I am not giving it to you. Derek started making threats again. He would tell our parents. He would turn the whole family against me. He would make my life miserable. But something had changed in me. Those threats did not land the way they used to. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and I saw someone I did not recognize anymore. Or maybe someone I was finally seeing clearly for the first time. Go ahead and tell them, I said. Tell everyone. I do not care anymore. What I care about is that you will not steal from me and face no consequences. That ends today. Derek sputtered. So what, you're just going to let the apartment go to some stranger? No, I said. I am giving it to Marcus. The friend who helped me figure out that you have no legal ground to stand on. He needs a place in the city, and unlike you, he earned my trust. Derek stared at me like I had slapped him. You would give it to a friend over your own brother. I would give it to anyone over someone who tried to steal it from me, I replied. And right now, Derek, you need to leave. Do not contact me again unless you are ready to genuinely apologize. I opened the door and stood beside it. Derek hesitated. For one moment I thought he might say something real, something honest. But then his face hardened again, and he walked out without another word. I closed the door behind him and leaned against it, my heart pounding. It was over. I had won. But it did not feel like victory. It felt like loss. The loss of the brother I thought I had. The loss of the family I thought I belonged to. The fallout was immediate. My mother called me that night, her voice sharp with accusation. How could you do this to Derek? He is your brother. He is family. I let her finish. Then I said something I had never said before. He tried to steal from me, Mom. And you helped him. You knew about the plan. You encouraged it. You looked at my home and decided Derek deserved it more than me. Silence on the other end. I love you, Mom. I continued. And I love Dad. But I need time away from this family. I need space to figure out who I am when I'm not being asked to sacrifice everything for Derek. I did not wait for her response. I hung up and turned off my phone. The move to Seattle happened 3 days later. Marcus helped me load the truck, and when we said goodbye, he promised to take good care of the apartment. I handed him the keys and felt something release in my chest. That chapter was closed. The first few weeks in Seattle were harder than I expected. I had a beautiful new apartment with a view of the mountains. I had a job I was excited about. But at night, the silence was deafening. I would lie awake thinking about everything that had happened, replaying the conversations, wondering if I'd been too harsh, wondering if I should have just given in to keep the peace. The thing about betrayal by family is that it does not heal cleanly. There is no moment where you wake up and the pain is gone. It lingers. It hides in unexpected places like the smell of your mother's perfume on a stranger walking by, or a memory of your brother laughing at a joke you told when you were kids. But slowly, gradually, I started to rebuild. I made friends at my new job. Real friends who invited me to dinner parties and hiking trips, and did not expect anything from me except my company. I discovered that I loved the Pacific Northwest, the evergreen forests, the coffee culture, the way the rain made everything feel clean and new. I started therapy for the first time in my life. I learned words for things I had experienced, but never named. Enmeshment, scapegoating, emotional manipulation. I learned that setting boundaries was not selfish. I learned that I was allowed to protect myself even from people who shared my blood. About 6 months after I moved, I got a message from Derek. It was long. Several paragraphs. I almost deleted it without reading. But something made me open it. It was not a perfect apology. He did not take full responsibility. He made excuses, talked about pressure from our parents, mentioned that he had lost his job and was struggling. But buried in there in the middle of all the deflection was one sentence that mattered. I was wrong to do what I did, and I am sorry I hurt you. I read that sentence several times. I did not respond right away. I was not ready to forgive him. Maybe I never would be fully. But I realized something important sitting there with his message glowing on my screen. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It is not about saying what they did was okay. It is about releasing the grip that anger has on your own heart. It is about choosing peace over bitterness. I do not know what the future holds for my relationship with Derek, or with my parents. Maybe someday we will find our way back to something resembling family. Maybe we will not. But I know this. I am no longer willing to sacrifice my own well-being to maintain relationships that cost me my dignity. I think about that apartment sometimes. The morning light through those east-facing windows. The creak of the hardwood floors. The way it felt like a sanctuary in the middle of a chaotic city. I hope Marcus is enjoying it. I hope he's making new memories in those rooms. As for me, I am sitting in my Seattle apartment as I tell you this story. The sun is rising over Mount Rainier, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. I have a cup of coffee in my hand, and know where I need to be for another hour. I built this life. Nobody gave it to me. Nobody can take it from me. Sometimes the hardest person to stand up for is yourself. But once you do, you realize you were worth fighting for all along. I want to ask you something before we end. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting your own dignity? How did you handle it? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one, and your story might help someone else who is going through something similar. If this story touched you, please hit the like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next story. And remember, you are worthy of respect, not just from strangers, but from the people who are supposed to love you the most. Thank you for being here with me today. I wish you strength, I wish you peace, and I wish you the courage to stand up for yourself whenever life demands it.